Bichamo Afurakanu Afuraitkaitnut Neye AKANFO NANASOM Da Dinde Odwirafo Kwesi Ptah Akhan Akwamuman Amaruka Atifi Mu Odwirafo Odwiraman Mu. Greetings to all Afurakani Afuraitkaitnut people, meaning Africans, black people today. AKANFO NANASOM Day, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion Day. My name is Odwirafo Kwesi Ptah Akhan, Odwirafo of the Akwamu Nation in North America. Within Odwiraman, the purified nation, Afurakani Afuraitkaitnut people in the Western Hemisphere. Yet I say we thank you for tuning in to the show once again. Opening up the chat room. If you have a question or a comment and you want to interact in the chat room, you must log in as a user with a username in order to interact in the chat room. If you don't have a username, you can sign up for one quickly in Blog Talk. On the phone line, if you have a question or a comment, simply hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised, and then we can connect with you on the phone line. And we have to reboot the chat room a couple of times. Sometimes Blog Talk chat doesn't open up right away. All right, so for individuals who are new to the broadcast, we have 4 broadcasts on a weekly basis. AKANFO NANASOM, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion on Joda Monday nights, where we deal specifically with the Akan expression of Nanasom. Number 1, because we're Akan. Number 2, because of the misinformation propagated regarding Akan religion, philosophy, cosmology, the nature of the Abosom, deities, not unknown Samanfo, spiritually cultivated ancestors and ancestors, Nyamewa, Nyame, the great mother, great father, the supreme being, Yonkumton, the creator and creatress, and so forth. So we bring that information, clarity to that information, ancient, authentic Akan ancestral religion that goes back to ancient Kanat, a title of ancient Nubia, to the western part of the continent where we reestablished the empire of Kanat, Nubia, or the empire of Ghana a couple of thousand years ago. And some of our people migrated from that region. Further south towards the forest belt, we reestablished Akana civilization a few hundred years ago, and then some of our people were forced from that region to North, Central, South America, the Caribbean, and Europe during the Umusu-Okeke, the Great Perversity, the enslavement era. And this is how Akana people ended up in the Western Hemisphere. However, we maintain our tradition, our ancestral religious tradition. When we were forced to migrate, Akan religion is expressed as hoodoo in North America, Obia in Jamaica, Wisi in Suriname. This is the Akhan. These are the expressions of the Akan religion. We've proven that through our book, Hoodoo People, Hoodoo Mind, and so forth. The Etchy Sign book that we published for the conference recently in March. So this is what we deal with on AKANFO NANASOM. On Tuesdays, we have Sinada, Abinada, which is Tuesday. We have Ojira, which means purification. We deal with ancestral religion in general, not just the Akan expression, but ancestral religion, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, ancestral religion in general, no matter what expression it takes and how it impacts every aspect of our lives. It's not just a separate aspect of life, but it impacts every aspect of our lives. The essence, or the ritual essence of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, ancestral religion, proper definition, is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. So that means through ritual we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject in order to restore balance to our lives and therefore realign our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. These are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. The ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. Ojira, purification, operationalizes Nanasom. Purification operationalizes our practice of ritually incorporating law and ritually restoring balance. And when we engage that process on a regular basis, we align every thought, intention, and action with divine order every moment of every day. This is the culture of Afurakanu Afuraitkaitnut people, African Black people. The acceptance of order, the rejection or hatred of disorder, the law or love of order, the hate, divine hate, repulsion of disorder, every moment of every day, every thought, intention, and action. So through ritual practice, we engage that process of incorporating law, restoring balance, so that we can align every thought, intention, and action with divine order, and when we make mistakes, we can correct ourselves. This is how ancestral religion impacts every aspect of our lives, because it just lives and impacts every decision, every thought, intention, and action. So we deal with texts from ancient Kemet and Kanaan, and ritual texts, oral texts from all over the continent, as well as our expressions of ancestral religion in the Western Hemisphere, dealing with that on Ojira purification, Benada, Abanada Tuesday night. On Awukuda Wednesday nights, we have Akuada, which Egua, Marketplace Day. We showcase businesses, organizations, and institutions in the Afurakanu Afuraitkaitnut community who are serving the community in a positive capacity, and who also maintain their ancestral religious values in the process. We showcase a number of businesses, organizations, and institutions on the show. When you go to our OKRAA Economic Development Model page, you will see the list of businesses, organizations, and institutions, links to their websites, links to the interviews they did with us, the 2-hour interviews they did with us on the page. So as they talked about their business, their philosophy of serving the community, rooted in their ancestral religious values, and how those values inform their philosophy of service to the community. These have been part of an ever-expanding list of our OKRAA Economic Development Model operation. We have published the OKRAA Economic Development Model, which is a development model rooted in our ancestral religious values. It is therefore a holistic approach to economic development for Afurakanu Afuraitkaitnut people. You can download that model from our OKRAA Economic Development Model page, which we'll put the link for that in the chat room, but it's OKRAA Economic Development Model on our website, on Odwirafo.com. You can download the model for free, of course. There's a 4-part series we did on Blog Talk, examining different applications of that model. And part of that process is what we call starve the beast and feed the pride. That means we make a decision on a weekly basis to determine what funds we would have potentially wasted with the white Nile Spring, and then we starve the beast and feed the pride. We reallocate those funds away from the white businesses, organizations, and so forth, and direct them to the business, organization, or institution of the week. We target one business, organization, or institution per week for optimal capital infusion. When we engage that process, you take $10 you would have wasted at a white business and redirect it to the business of the week. That's an infusion of $10 of capital. When 1,000 people engage that process because they're focused on economic empowerment in our community, that's a $10,000 transfer of resources, capital, from a white business, from our enemies, directly into a black business. Will allow them to expand higher within the community, cause people to be employed and so forth, serve us at a greater capacity, expand their products and services to us, replace the services and the products that we were accessing from the white Nile Springs. Our people can take care of those services, expand those product lines. We can put those white businesses out of business and expand our own. When we engage that process, we can help to sustain and expand businesses on a weekly basis. A $10,000 infusion of capital or $15,000 infusion of capital into a black business in the course of 7 days is a great benefit to that business and to the community, because they can serve us at a greater capacity and they can hire our people within the community permanently. If we do not engage this process, by default, we leave that $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in the hands of our absolute enemies, the whites and their offspring, and they expand their businesses, hire their people on the backs of our people. The money that we generate through work and so forth on a daily basis, we simply hand it over to our absolute enemies, and thereby financing our own oppression by default. So we engage the process of starving the beast and feeding the prophet. Give me 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Okay, and so that's on Awukuda Wednesday night. And then on Yauda, which is Thursday, also called Yada Abada, Thursday nights, we have Amain Sim, Affairs of the Nation. So we deal with specific issues that are taking place currently within Ojiraman, within the purified nation, Afurakanu people in the Western Hemisphere, things that are current events that are affecting the community, and a nationist approach, an Amaniye approach. Nationism, as we call it, Amaniye, the purification of nationalism, but a nationist approach, an Afuraitkaitnut nationist approach, a holistic approach to resolving our issues, no matter what they are. So that's a new program that just started a few weeks ago. So now we have 4 broadcasts on a weekly basis. For individuals who are unaware, this week, this Sida, which is Friday, is our Ojiraman Afashe conference. The Purified Nation Ojiraman Afuraitkaitnut people in the Western Hemisphere. Our conference festival, the focus is Amaniye, Afuraitkaitnut nationism, the purification of nationalism. So we're going to have a number of presenters, as well as we're having our Egua marketplace vendors. You can shop all day. It is a free event. It is here in Washington, D.C. from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. all day. When you go to the Ojiraman page on the website, you see the list of presentations, as well as the links to the information, the flyer you can download. We'll put the link in the chat room right now. It's the Ojiraman Afashe page on our website. We also have an Ojiraman Afashe page on Facebook. We'll put that link in the chat room. So when you go to that page, you'll see what the conference is about. You can download the trailer, the movie trailer to the conference, get that detailed information. But this is one of our 3 annual conferences. We have the Hoodoo Nation Festival 3 weeks after our New Year celebration. Our New Year celebration is a 7-day celebration leading up to the first day of our New Year, which is September 22nd or 23rd, depending on the year, because it's the first full day of the Atem or autumn equinox, that is the beginning of our new year in our Akwamuman calendar. So 3 weeks after that, we have our Hoodoo Nation Festival dealing with the Akan religion in North America. Then that's right after the autumn equinox. Then in March, at the vernal equinox, the spring equinox, we have ancestral religious reversion. We're talking about ancestral religion born of the blood circles of our people that we have inherited and transmitted intergenerationally, transcarnationally in the Western Hemisphere. We had our first annual Etchi Sign Conference. We had presentations on Hoodoo, the Akhan tradition in North America, Juju, the Yoruba tradition in North America, Wanga, the Gullah tradition in North America, Gangai, the Fang tradition in North America, Fang. We're dealing with the Grigri tradition, Bambara tradition, Vodou, Louisiana Vodou, prior to the Haitians migrating into the United States. Vodou was already in the United States. All of our ancestral religious traditions were brought into the United States, into North America, in the blood circles of our people. We have maintained our ancestral religious traditions. We're not dependent on anyone outside of our direct ancestral blood circles for our ancestral traditions, including priesthood and priesthood. We're not dependent on anybody on the continent, anybody in the Caribbean, anybody anywhere else outside of our ancestral religious blood circle. So we had the first annual Etchi Sign Conference dealing with ancestral religion born in the blood circles of our people. And talking about reversion, sign meaning to revert, to return to our primal state, our essential nature, our primal essence as Afuraitkaitnut people. These are around the equinoxes, those 2 conferences, and then at the apex, around the summer solstice, we have Ojiraman, Afashe, Ojiraman, the purified nation. We're dealing with nationism, the purification of nationalism, operationalizing the 7 principal values of nation building, Ayensu, methods of food production and preservation, methods of curing disease, establishing a military structure, institutionalizing our values by establishing training institutions, educational institutions, cultural institutions, religious institutions, governmental institutions, and so forth, establishing sound systems of governance and jurisprudence, manufacturing and building of homes on acquired land, territory, the manufacturing of clothing. So these 7 principal values of Ayensu nation building, we must operationalize and continue to work on and divide up and engage those different areas based on our nature, based on our function and creation. So we're dealing with Amaniye, nationism, the purification of nationalism, and Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, ancestral religious root of nationalism, which is really nationalism. We're moving in an old but new direction, a proper understanding of nationalism, and this is why we utilize that term to distinguish it from what has been propagated over the past 100+ years. Secular nationalism, messianic nationalism, an abstract, rudderless Pan-Africanism, and so forth, with no grounding, which has been ineffective, as we can see over the past 100+ years. It has not resulted in the goal of independence, sovereignty on our own territory, and the absolute defense of that sovereignty, self-rule, and self-governance. This is because we're not grounded in our ancestral religious tradition, which is the foundation for us functioning as a nation, as a living organic entity with a spirit that governs the nation. So we're going to get into that at the conference. Again, it's a free conference, and we'll talk about that more throughout the broadcast. But that is this Friday, Ptah, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. all day long. You can come for part of the day or the whole day. We will shop with the vendors throughout the day. Some people are taking a half a day, and the doors will open at 12, and the program will begin at 1 p.m. So for people who are taking a half a day, you'll be able to get here just in time for the beginning of the program. Of course, we'll be going until 8 p.m., so some people will come after work and so forth. There'll still be certain things going on, at least one more presentation beginning around 6 p.m. So, and some people are simply, because children are out of school, finished school last week and this week, some people are taking that day off so that they can come to the conference. You can bring people to the conference and so forth. Of course, it's open to Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut people, African black people only. That's Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut. White Hispanics, white Latinos, white Latinas are not black people. White Arabs are not black people. White Hindus are not black people. White pseudo-Native Americans are not black people. So these is for our people only. Registration is free. Registration is required. So when you go to the site, the Odwirafo page on our site, you'll see the link to our name site, and we'll put that link in the chat room right now. Afuraitkaitnut, Afuraitkaitnut. We have a separate social media network that we pay for, that we maintain, and you can go to that site and click on the registration tab to indicate that you're going to attend. You can do the same thing in the event notification on Facebook, and of course we created a separate business page specifically for, or community page specifically for the Odwirafo conference. So you can go to that page as well, but you can get to the event notifications and indicate that you will be attending. You can register that way as well. So give me one more second. Hold on one second. For the topic for tonight, I'm going to put a couple of links in the chat room. Dealing with AKANFO NANASOM, ancient, authentic Akan Ancestral Religion. We deal with the nature of the Abosom, the deities, the spirit forces in creation, proper understanding of these forces in creation. Of course, all Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut people, wherever we exist in the world, the same earth and mother that we walk upon today is the same earth and mother our people walked upon millions of years ago. The same sun that shines on us today is the same sun that our people interfaced with and felt the energy from thousands of years ago. the same moon, the same black substance of space, the same planets, the same atmosphere, the same oceans, rivers, mountains, and so forth are the same features of creation that we interface with today, that our ancestresses and ancestors interfaced with millions of years ago. Continues. The same spirits that animate the sun and animate the Earth Mother and animate the oceans and animate the black substance of space and animate the stars and animate the moon and animate the various planets and so forth are the same spirits that were animating these different features of creation millions of years ago up until this moment, and are the same spirits or deities that our ancestresses and ancestors were possessed by and communicated with, and they still possess us today. When the sun shines on us, we feel the same heat that our ancestors and ancestors felt from that same aura. When the spirits that animate the sun possess us today and get inside our bodies today, whether we're on the continent or in North America, anywhere in the world, through spirit possession, Akon, and spirit communication, Nkong, these are the same spirit deities, Abosom, Orisha, Vodou, Ntorotu, deities that possessed our people millions of years ago, thousands of years ago, up until this very moment. So we have different descriptive titles for these divinities, but they're the same divinity. That includes in the Akhan tradition, and we're going to talk about the divinity Ayensu and Ya, who are called Khensu and Wadjet in ancient Kemet. They're called Ayensu and Avejida in Vodun. Now, it's important, and the reason we're talking about it today, of course, is because today is actually the day of the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, 15 hours plus of sunlight, 9 hours of darkness. The Aten, or the Oriya, the sun, rises to its highest point in the sky, and its most direct rays most directly hitting the earth and so forth. So it's the longest day of the year. So, and this is one of the reasons, because it's at that specific point, it's most powerful, most vigorous. It's akin to noontime, and the sun is directly overhead and so forth, the most fiery time of the day. Same thing during this point of the year. Just like midnight is the darkest point of the day, the lowest point, you have the winter solstice, which is around December 21st, the shortest day of the year, 9 hours of daylight, 15 hours of dark. Then you go all the way up for the next few months until you get to evening point, the equinox, which is March, 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness, and then the sunlight begins to increase 1+ minute per day until you get all the way to June 21st, and it's 15 hours of sunlight, 9 hours of darkness, and then the sunlight begins to decrease 1+ minute per day until you get to September 22nd, 23rd. That's the evening point of the equinox, equal nights and so forth, 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness. That's the end of the warm point of the year, the harvest time, but then it's also the seeding time. It's also a new beginning. This is why we have our New Year Ojira purification celebration, 7-day New Year celebration around the equinox, at the equinox, and that's our New Year's Day. And last year was September 22nd, and that was, or September 23rd, and that was the first day of 13,016. This year it'll be September 22nd. That will be the first day of our year, 13,017. A little bit more than 3 months before the European Gregorian calendar New Year on January 1st. And of course, there was no Jesus, so there's nothing happened 2,000 years ago, so we don't count or clock time based on a fictional cartoon character who never existed. And of course, after the equinox in September, then the sunlight continues to decrease on a daily basis until you get to the shortest day of the year, which is December 21st. But today is the hottest time of the year, the longest day of the year, and so forth. The sun is at its height. However, this is a different kind of summer solstice, and sol, Latin for sun, sol comes from solo, and sholo. Solo comes from solo, sholo, shoro, horo. Horo is the title of Heru in Coptic. It's horo, horo. This is where they get shoro, sholo, solo, sol. This is where the sun comes from. And stis means to stand, so solstice means stand still, the sun is standing still. It's a different kind of, actually, this year coincides with the full moon. So you have the full moon and the sun at the summer solstice conjoined on the same day. This is the first time in over like 60 years that this has taken place. So there's a fusion of energy, there's a conjunction of energy that's taking place that's affecting Asase Afur, the fertile earth mother, Asase Ya, the barren earth mother, and so forth, and affecting us as Afurakanu and Afuraitkaitnut people because we are children of these earth mother divinities. Of course, this has nothing to do with the whites and their offspring, pseudo-Native Americans, Asians, Hindus, Arabs, Europeans. They have no connection to any Abosom. They have no KRAA, no soul, divine consciousness, so they cannot be possessed by the divinity, the forces in nature. Their spirits are repulsed, no different than a magnet repulsing another one across the table. The deities do not possess the whites and their offspring. They do not communicate. The great mother and great father, Amenet and Amen, or Inyamewa, Inyame, do not communicate with the whites and their offspring, do not possess, do not guide them. They only isolate and prepare them for destruction, just like the cancerous cells in your body are isolated and prepared for destruction. They are not communicated by your body to help them repair and become healthy cells. Once again, they are isolated so they can be destroyed to maintain the integrity of the body. The whites and their offspring, including white Asians, white Europeans, white Hindus, white Arabs, white Latinos, white Latinas, white Hispanics, white pseudo-Native Americans, are the cancer cells within the body of black humanity. So, this has to do with our people and our people only. So when we deal with Ayensu and Ya, Khensu and Wadjet, operating through the full moon and the sun at the summer solstice, this is a conjunction of solar and lunar energy that we can utilize and take advantage of for our benefit. This is a special year for that, and therefore it is, of course, an auspicious year for the first annual Odwirafo conference. We're always going to have our Odwirafo, our nationism conference around the summer solstice to take advantage of that energy, just like we take advantage of the energy of the equinoxes for the other two conferences. So, let's get into this information. We've talked about the deity Khensu, the son of Amen and Mut in the past, and we're going to put a link. We've also talked about Wadjet in the past as well. We're going to put a link to our article that we have on our website so you can read along with that. The image that we show on the front page when we're promoting the show, what you see is the deity Khensu, and he's sitting in mummy form. He's wearing the moon on his head. He has the disk as well as the full moon on his head. And then what you also see in front of Khensu is you see the image of the winged cobra, and it's actually Wadjet. And the reason we utilize that picture, of course, because this is the union of Khensu, who's operating through the moon, and Wadjet, who's operating through the sun. The solar disk is on her head, as you can see. The summer solstice is the coming forth of Wadjet. That's a feast day and a celebration day in the ancient Kemetic calendar, and it's called the coming forth of Wadjet. We're going to read something real quick. Let me pull the book out. Now, you can get information talking about the basic feast days and things like that for the Kemetic calendar in different, all over the internet and so forth. What we want to talk about real quick, if you look at our link to the Abosom, Ya is the general title, popular title of Wadjet in the Akhan tradition. We talk about the etymology of the name Ya, fierce attacker, relentlessly assailing disorder. She's a divinity of fighting and punishment. She's a protectress of royal sovereignty. You see the rearing cobra rearing up on the forehead of the king and the queen mother in ancient Kemet, the fire-spitting cobra, fighting punishment, relentlessly assailing disorder, fierce attacker, killing the enemies of the king, the queen mother, and so forth, of the sovereign. Protectress of royal sovereignty along with her sister Nekabet, called Aba and Akhan, popularly, but also called Aba in ancient Kemet. Sometimes she takes the form of a vulture on the forehead, but sometimes she takes the form of a cobra as well. They govern the divine magnetosphere, a governmental structure preserving stability within Abadiye creation, the divine body of Amenet and Amen, and therefore the magnetosphere permeating Asafia for the earth mother and our bodies as well. The divine magnetosphere, the magnetic field that surrounds your body, the two feminine polar energies, Wadjet and Nekabet. And they're regulating the magnetosphere, the magnetic field surrounding Earth, the magnetic field surrounding you. So when you look at the serpentine body, when they take the form of winged cobras, you see the wings dealing with the air. You see the serpentine body, the undulating body of the serpent is that electromagnetic energy. And then when you understand the connection between the magnetosphere and its effect upon the jet stream, the wind that's moving around the planet Earth, the magnetosphere, of course, in connection with the movement of the Earth around the Aten, the sun, the gravity of the sun affecting that as well, but the magnetosphere affecting the jet stream as it whips around the Earth, the winds, and this is why Wadjet was called Ya in Akhan. She's called Oya in the Yoruba tradition. She's called Abejida in the Vodun tradition. They talk about her governing hurricanes and tempests and the winds and so forth, the winds of change, governing the magnetosphere, which directly affects the wind, the jet stream around Earth. This is what we're talking about. In your body, your magnetosphere and the wind within your body is manifest through the lungs, which expand and contract, and inside the lungs are the bronchial tubes, and that electromagnetic energy is circulating in there. You'll see Wadjet and Nekabet in the heart and lung complex. They're sitting right inside the bronchial tube. So when you see Wadjet and Nekabet connected to the upper Kemet and lower Kemet, the plant of the north and the plant of the south, the lily in the north, the watch plant in the north, and the lotus in the south, the Nekeb plant in the south, you see these two plants tied around the Smai Tawi symbol, tied around the trachea and the lungs and so forth. That is a symbol of the lungs with the bronchial tubes. Those are the quote-unquote trees or plant life of the north and the south, governed by Wadjet in the north, Nekabet in the south. So we go into detail about all of that in this particular article. We're just going to give you specific points. We're not going to read through the entire article, but we just want to give you some of those points. In the Akhan language, Ya, the title of the deity, Ya in Akhan, Ya means to shy, scold, attack, rebuke. Ya Yade means to torture. Ya also means pain and affliction. The term Yao means the same thing. So the deity Yao is the male deity. The deity Ya is the female deity. Yao is Heru, the son of Asar and Aset. Ya is Wadjet. So Ya meaning to fight, scold, attack. Ya also means pain, affliction. That's in the Akhan language. Then when you look in the Medutu, the hieroglyph, Ihya means to attack, to fight. Ihya also means pain, misery, affliction. So the same two definitions for Ya in Akhan, to attack, to fight, but also means pain and misery and affliction. You find the exact two same meanings for Ihya in ancient Kemet, to attack, to fight, but also pain, misery, affliction. She's bringing that pain. She's waging war, attacking, assailing, disorder, fire-spitting cobra. The electromagnetic energy that you can train through that shrine of Wadjet within you to destroy and project that energy against your enemies. Now, even just on a lower level, you can stand in line at a bank or a store and you can stare intently at someone, and the very weak electromagnetic waves that emanate from you travel across space and people can feel you staring at them. That's just simply electromagnetic energy passing. And of course, our nervous system runs off of electromagnetic energy. This is why when somebody has a heart attack, the two electric pads are rubbed together. They place them on the chest of the person and say clear and pump some electricity into the person to jump-start your nervous system, just like you're jump-starting a car with two cables, because there's electromagnetic energy that runs through our system. All of our signals from the brain throughout the nerves and so forth is electromagnetic. Of course, when you step on a carpet or touch a doorknob or touch somebody, you can shock them. The reason why there's a spark, because we are electromagnetic. We're on Earth, and it's surrounded by a magnetosphere. So, of course, on a lower level, you can project electromagnetic energy just physically through staring. When you train your spirit and your energy to focus on someone intently, you can project even more energy that can cause problems, cause damage, cause illness, and various other things. So that's physically, you can summon that kind of energy even through your physical body, and this is why when people engage in martial arts and they summon that sekhem, the power, then they can break blocks, break cinder blocks, break wood, and so forth. They're filling those spaces within their muscles and bones and so forth with that powerful sekhem energy, and then they can break through something. So they're transmitting that energy just on a lower level. On that level, it's not even dealing with spirituality. You're just summoning this basic electromagnetic energy. When we invoke the Abosom Yah, as well as Abba, Wadjet, and Nekabet, then we have access to a replenishment of our energy, but access to even more of their dispensation of energy. That's a link that the whites and our offspring do not have. So we just want to give that etymology, Yah meaning pain, misery, affliction, because she can bring that pain, misery, affliction through assailing disorder and its purveyors. But it also means to attack, to fight, to scold, and so forth. So we show that. We show the images of her, the watch plant, the so-called papyrus plant, rising up out of the north in the same fashion as the rearing cobra and so forth, showing the, the same divinity in the form of that serpent on the forehead, sometimes Wadjet and Nekabet, both surrounding the sun disk as winged cobra. So we show all of that in the article, so we don't have to go through that part. We just want to get through the section. So when you see they're connected, both of them, Wadjet on one side, Nekabet on the other side, the sun disk is in the middle. So on one hand you have Wadjet, Heru, Nekabet. Wadjet, the eye of Heru, Nekabet. You have Yao, you have Yah, Yao and Abba, Oya, Shango, Oba, Vegeta, Hevioso, and Ayaba and Godun, these three different divinities. The key is they're flanking the sun disk sometimes. So this is the connection we're talking about on one hand with regard to Yah, the sun disk. At the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, the coolest time of the year, when the sun is making its shortest arc, the coolness, then you have that festival of Nekabet at the winter solstice, when the sun is at its deepest point. But then when the sun begins to increase, the solar energy begins to increase and reaches its highest point of the year, when the rearing cobra reaches up to the highest point, then that is the coming forth of Wadjet, and that is today. That is June 20th. So you go from Nekabet to one pole, you go to Wadjet to the other pole. Wadjet, where's the red crown, which is the crown of the north, connected to foreign affairs, because our people were being attacked from the north and the invaders were coming to Kemet from the north. Wadjet governing northern Kemet, which is lower Kemet. And then you have Nekabet governing internal affairs, wearing the white crown in southern. She's the centripetal force, that magnetic force that's dealing with internal affairs. Wadjet is the centrifugal force, that obliterating force that's dealing with external affairs, that expansive energy, that electric energy, and then you have Nekabet, which is the contractive energy, the magnetic energy pulling things inward, while the centrifugal energy is wielding the force outward, expansion and contraction. And you have the same thing with the different poles. When you talk about the internal or the dark time of the year, the cool time of the year where the sun is quote-unquote underground, so to speak, inside, that's December 21st. That's where Nekabet is. That's the lowest point, but that's also the germinating point. When the seed is planted in the ground, the first thing that happens is the roots go down deep into the darkness. Then germination takes place, and then eventually roots and sprouts begin to push up through the soil, and then they break through the surface of the earth. That's around the springtime, and then it reaches up to the sun, grows up to the sun around the summer solstice to begin to fully flower. But first they go deep down in the darkness. So that's conception, but also germination. December 21st, deep down in the darkness, the coldest, darkest time of the year, internal, where the mother is, the mother, which is the vulture and so forth, is Nekabet. But then once things begin to break the surface of the earth and reach all the way up to the top, fully flowering at the hottest time of the year, this is the rearing of the cobra, the fiery energy of Wadjet. So we deal with that information in this part of the article. We show them as the winged, both of them as the winged cobras and so forth. We show the Smai Taui symbol with the trachea and the lungs and the two plants of the south and north wrapped around that, and show that, as we said, it's the same. We show that image right next to an image of the lungs, and you can see the bronchial tubes in the lungs. You can see it's the same symbol, that bronchial tree. And then we show an Adinka symbol that represents the same thing. There, we just want to get through some of that. Now, you want to pull up, if you look down on page 11 with regard to this, on the YA article, and we put the link in the chat room for those who came in a little bit later. It's on our AKRADINBOSOM page on our website, and it's the article for the Abosom YA Wadjet. That's what we're reading from. Okay, so when you get to page 11, we talked about Ya, Naba, Wadjet, and Nekabet, tutelary queens of northern and southern Khmer, respectively, dealing with the two lands of Taui, operating through the magnetosphere, and are thus the first line of communication as well as defect. The Kahibit, which is the aura, extends beyond the body, and it's the first aspect of your spiritual energy that, quote-unquote, touches or communicates with other entities. It is also the first protective shield. So we show a body with the electromagnetic aura emanating from it. The circumference of the Kahibit, your aura, thus prescribes the orbit of Wadjet and Nekabet. It represents the outer reaches of the human entity. This is a replication of the solar system, where the twins, Wadjet and Nekabet, are the Ochin or planets whose orbits prescribe the circumference, the outer reaches of the solar system. So the planetary homes of Wadjet and Nekabet, the twin sisters, are Uranus and Neptune, the twin gas planets of the outer reaches of the solar system. That's the planetary home. But they also have a place within the solar and lunar bodies as well. That's solar energy and lunar energy dealing with Wadjet and Nekabet as well. And we show them flanked around the eye of Heru and all of that. So we show Wadjet with the red crown, defending against having that explosive force, centrifugal force, expansive electric outward pole of the feminine aspect of electromagnetic energy. Nekabet has the magnetic, contractive, centripetal, inward pole of the feminine aspect of electromagnetic energy of the magnetosphere. Now, that's dealing with Wadjet. You can see the rearing cobra. You can see it within nature as the sun at the highest point in the sky, and you see her wearing the sun disk on top of her head. Now, we want to pull up some explanation of that. Just give me 1 second. If you have any questions or comments, you can, in the chat room, you can hit the number 1. Or, I'm sorry, on the phone line, you can hit the number 1. And in the chat room, you have to log in as a user in order to interact. Okay, but before we get to that, so let's get to this information dealing with Khensu. So we talked about Wadjet, her connection to the summer solstice, but today, summer solstice for the full moon is connected with the summer solstice, the sun at its highest point. Khensu is a divinity, is the son of Amen, the great God, and Mut, the great mother. Khensu, we've talked about before. Of course, they took the name Khensu. He's a hawk-headed divinity. He's a divine healer, but he's also a divine killer. waging war against the enemy. He's a hawk-headed divinity. He's a Heru divinity. He's called Khensu Neferhetep Heru. He's the son of Amen and Mut, whereas Heru, son of Alsar and Alset, is another Heru, hawk-headed or falcon-headed divinity. We also have Heru Behudet, the son of Ra, who's another Heru divinity, falcon-headed divinity. You also have Mentu, who's also a falcon-headed divinity, also a Heru-headed divinity. So you see, and of course, Ra himself has a head of a falcon, hawk, and so forth. You see these different deities with these Heru heads or falcon heads or hawk heads and so forth. They all come from that patrilineage or patricircle of Ra. These are different divinities, different functions in creation, just like the different organs in your body. The wife and offspring sought to fuse these different deities all together in one entity. So they took the story of Heru, the son of Alsar and Alset, born of a virgin, his death and resurrection, and coming to redeem and save the world from Set and his followers and so forth. That whole Jesus story is taken from the function of Heru in nature. But then the filler, specific things dealing with healing and life story and things like that, that comes from Khensu Neferhetep Heru, the son of Amen and Mut. Khensu Neferhetep Heru. Khensu became corrupted into Yeshua and later Jesus. So we showed that etymology. We talked about that in our book, KUKUU-TUNTUM, the Ancestral Jurisdiction, and so forth. And we did a broadcast specifically on Khensu and his function in creation. But we don't have to rehash that. You can check out that broadcast. We want to focus on a specific function of Khensu. He can be connected with the moon. Khensu, they would say, well, Khensu up means to travel or a traveler because he's traveling across the sky. But then it's also connected with the Medutu for the placenta. So the whites and their offspring don't know if the name Khensu means placenta, or does it just mean Khensu meaning to travel across the sky, traveler. So they're not sure, and they don't understand. But of course, we have the same deity that's in our practice, our ritual practice. Khensu is called Ayensu in Akhan, and then his female counterpart is Ayensuwa in Akhan. You'll find both of them, Ayensu in Bodum. You'll also find Khensu in ancient Kemet, but you also find the female divinity Khensu, also spelled Khensi in ancient Kemet as well. The whites and offspring don't talk about Khensi, even though they will show that she exists, but they don't talk about her because they don't know her. So they would simply relegate her to being, oh, well, she's just a minor deity. She's not well attested in the text, so therefore she wasn't very important because they don't know who she is. They relegate her to being unimportant. They do the same thing with Ra'at. They do the same thing with Aminet. They do the same thing with the male deity Ma'al, who's the male counterpart of the female deity Ma'at. When they don't find enough text that they feel like they can read and learn something about, then they will make a decision that these deities are not important or they weren't important to our people. Some little weak, degenerate, hairy beast, cracker walking around with a pick and a shovel, talking about what deities, what forces in creation who have been regulating creation for millions of years, billions of years. This little cracker is going to talk about what deity is important and what deity is not important because they can't find more information that satisfies them. And then silly Negroes who think that they're linguists, think that they're spiritualists, think that they're engaged in scientific inquiry and research, simply repeat the stupidity of white Egyptologists and archaeologists and linguists and others and talk about, well, she's not very well attested in the text, so therefore she wasn't an important deity. She wasn't very important in the cosmology. These clowns are just apes of the whites and their offspring. But when you actually have a real practice, then these silly little degrees that white people manufactured out of thin air to give themselves so that they can call themselves experts on our ancestral culture and religion, which they have absolutely no expertise whatsoever. If you can't be possessed by the deities and communicate with them, you don't know. All you can do is look around at some monuments and try to figure out the way we pronounce words. But you have no knowledge of any deity if you cannot communicate with them. these Abosom still communicate with our people every day. They still possess our people in North America. They speak through divination in North America and shrine work in North America, as well as on the continent, as well as in Central America, South America, the Caribbean, Europe, wherever black people are. In Hoodoo, in Juju, and Vodun, in Greek-Ri, and Wanga, and so forth, in Gangan, all these various traditions in the Western Hemisphere, as well as on the continent. So we have direct knowledge. We have expertise in these areas. The whites and their offspring do not have that. And silly clown apes of the whites and their offspring who think they're being scholarly, but are really just repeating the nonsense of the whites and their offspring, they have no knowledge of these areas either. So their lack of information is betrayed on a regular basis. So we don't put stock into clowns who just ape the whites and their offspring. When people are actually dealing with the actual ritual practices, they have direct knowledge. So we can talk about Khensu or Ayensu in Akhan. We can talk about Ayensu, the female divinity in Akhan, because we still deal with it. And we can show how they show up in ancient Kemet. The whites and their offspring would say Khensu means traveler, but it also means placenta, possibly. So, but it's also the title of the deity and related to the king and so forth, and they can't put it all together. When you look in the Akhan language, you will find the union of these various things. Ayensu, the connection is Hien and then Su. Su or Su, it means water, but Su, the root of it means essence, your essential nature. Su is the root of the term Su Ban, which means character. Ban means fence, and Su is your essential nature or character, essential essence. So the Su is the essential essence, and then the Ban is the fence around your essential essence. That's why character is called Su Ban, the fence or the structure that surrounds your essential nature. So when you see the fence that surrounds somebody's essential nature, what you're looking at is their character. But the root is Su. And it's also the word for water, because water is our essence, the great noon and noonet, that wave energy within the great black substance of space, that black watery substance of space, that is from which everything is born. That's from which Ra and Ra'et are born, from noon and noonet, the primordial energy within the black substance of space. They rise up out of that primordial, watery, wavy energy. That is our essence. So when we talk about Su, it means water. Generally in Akhan, Su or Su, but then it also means essence, essential nature. Then you have Hien. It has a couple of meanings. Hien means to rear, to raise, to nurture, to educate, and so forth. Hien also means a ship or a vessel. Hien also can mean quote unquote witchcraft, sorcery, so to speak, but utilizing that electromagnetic energy, utilizing that spiritual force you have to wield that force to attack your enemies if you're in harmony with order, but if someone is disjointed from their own Ka'et, soul, divine consciousness, then they'll utilize the little bit of residual energy they have to attack people in a negative way, just like somebody who works out and becomes muscular, they can use their muscular energy to protect our community or use it to commit armed robbery. So people who build up that life force energy to a certain extent, they can utilize it to attack their enemies. They can utilize that lower level psychic power to attack people in a negative fashion. When people increase that power because they're connected with the Abosom, it can only be utilized for that which is in harmony with order, meaning the only attack you have is the attack on the enemy, the whites and their offspring, as well as the coons within the community who work on behalf of the whites and their offspring. So that Yang, quote unquote, source, this is how it will be, defined in a European dictionary. Yang meaning sorcery, witchcraft, and Ayenfo, another term for witches, same as Aze or Aj in the Yoruba tradition, Ayen in Akhan, meaning that kind of, utilizing that kind of energy, Yang, but then Yang also meaning a ship or a vessel, but Yang also meaning to rear, to raise, to nurture, and so forth, and this is the root of the term Ayensu or Ayensu, the name of the divinity. that primal essence, that essential nature, Su, that's associated with Yang, to raise, to nurture, to rear, to educate, to guide. Within Yang, also meaning a vessel that moves and travels. Yang also meaning, quote unquote, sorcery, witchcraft, but it can be used for positive or negative. Now, when you look at the placenta, and in ancient Kemet, Khensu or Khen meaning placenta, and it's the symbol of the placenta. The placenta is what guides, nourishes, rears, feeds, nourishes the developing child while they're in the womb. This is why it's Yang in Akhan, meaning that nourishment, development, and so forth, rearing, raising up, and it means the same thing in ancient Kemet as a title of the placenta. Yang meaning ship or vessel that travels. This is why you have Ayensu, the traveler in ancient Kemet. He's traveling through the moon, the one that travels across the sky. Travels across the sky at nighttime, also travels across the sky in the daytime, and so forth. But then Khensu, also dealing with quote-unquote sorcery, magic, witchcraft, and talking about that electromagnetic energy used to heal, to protect, to defend. When you learn about Khensu Nefer Hetep Heru, and you learn about, for example, the famous story on the stele of Bekten, or the princess of Bekten, and she fell ill, a princess up in western Syria and so forth, and the ruler in the area sent his messengers to ancient Kemet, to the king. They were asking for healing. The priests from ancient Kemet went there. They recognized that the girl was not ill per se, just a physical illness, but she was plagued by a spirit that was causing her illness. So the priests have been sent from Kemet and did the proper diagnosis. They went back and asked the king, the Ohinni in Kemet, can you please have Khensu and his shrine be sent up here to help remove this spirit? So a shrine of Khensu Nefer Hetep Heru was taken from Kemet and taken up into so-called Near East, in this region called Neherim. And Khensu, the deity, interfaced with that spirit and repelled the spirit. The spirit submitted to Khensu and left the body of the girl. And she was cured instantaneously, and everybody was happy and so forth. Of course, there's a little story where the wife and offspring stole this from Jesus and the little girl dying, and he resurrected her and all that other nonsense. Now, Khensu's shrine, because they were so happy up there in Neherim in the Near East, that Khensu was a divine healer. The king of the area decided to hold on to the shrine of Khensu up in the Near East for 3 years. And he started feeling bad about it. But then after 3 years, he had a dream where he saw the falcon or the hawk fly up from the shrine that he was holding on to and flew back to ancient Kemet. And when he woke up, he realized, I better send this shrine back. The deities have left, and some calamities are going to fall upon me if I don't send the shrine back. So he sent the shrine of Khensu back to ancient Kemet, to the parent shrine of the deity. That means that Khensu, or Jesus, Yeshua, came out of Egypt, quote unquote, out of Egypt, I should call my son, and went into the Near East to heal and remained there for 3 years, and then his spirit flew up into the heavens and went back to be with his father back home in ancient Kemet. So this notion of Khensu or Jesus spending 3 years as a ministry in the Near East until his spirit left his body through his death and resurrection and all of that, and went back to sit at the right hand of his father. That whole story is stolen from this stele of Bekten in the story, which was very popular. The key is Khensu is known as a healer, a divine healer, one who drives out spirit. This is what Khensu is invoked for in ancient Kemet. He's invoked for that in our Khan tradition today, and Vodun, that's Ayensu, same thing. So you can read some different things. For example, a thing you will find on a general site on the internet, Khensu not only ruled the month, but he also supposed to possess absolute power over the evil spirits which infested earth, air, sea, and sky, and which made themselves hostile to man and attacked his body under the forms of pain, sickness, and diseases, and produced decay and madness and death. Madness, of course, being a spiritual illness. He it was, moreover, who made plants to grow and fruit to ripen and animals to conceive. To men and women, he was the divinity of that union. So on one hand, he's driving out evil spirits, Khensu. On the other hand, he's making plants grow and fruit to ripen and animals to conceive and all of that. The root of the name, as we say, Khen, means to nourish, to train up, to rear, to educate, to nourish and so forth. That's making plants to grow, fruit to ripen, animals to conceive and all of that. But then Akhan, meaning dealing with evil spirits, wicked, sorcery and all of that, but utilizing that power to drive out evil spirits. The exact same function you find in Khensu and ancient Kemet, you find in Ayensu and Ayensuwa in the Akhan language and culture on the continent as well as here in America. Of course, when you talk about the placenta, and the afterbirth and so forth, and then we bury the placenta. We bury the placenta because it can become a magnet for discarnate spirits without otherwise seek to cause a problem with the child. So ritually, after that spirit that's connected with the placenta comes out of the child comes out of the womb, and the divinities that are connected with the child are working with the child, then you take the placenta and you bury the placenta, or else there's, negative spirits is a magnet for, it can be a magnet possibly for negative discarnate spirits who are hanging around to be drawn to, and if they're drawn to that placenta, then they can try to negatively influence the child. So all over the continent, we have these ritual practices in America dealing with the placenta, burying the placenta. That's connected to that whole notion of Khen and Khensu, meaning dealing with witchcraft, whether you're destroying people, dealing with negative witchcraft as an Ayensu, one of the Ayensu people engaged in negativity. So this is what we're doing. So when we talk about that, we want to look at his function in the physical body. And there's a connection between the rising up of the cobra of Wadjet, operating through the sun, fire-spitting cobra, destroying disorder, electromagnetic field, the magnetosphere, destroying disorder and so forth, electrocuting these cancerous cells, obliterating these cancerous cells, and so forth. And then you have Khensu, who's attacking as well. We talked about where Wadjet and Nekabet operate within the body, the magnetosphere, but then they're seated in the bronchial tubes in the lungs, that electromagnetic energy circulating when you're breathing in and out and so forth. The electromagnetic energy moving through the breath, the oxygen going through the lungs within the bronchial tubes, affecting the magnetosphere of the body, and of course the energy moving up and down the spine, going from the base of the spine to the top of the head, and you see the rearing cobra at the forehead and so forth, and then coming back down the front of the body. Now, where do you find Khensu in the body? And what is the connection between Khensu and Wadjet, or Ayensu and the Abosom Ya? Ayensu you'll find seated in the thymus gland. Now, where's the thymus gland? What is the thymus gland about? We'll pull up just a basic website dealing with that. Find them all over the internet, of course. So we can show the connection of his function, where he's seated, and his relationship to other divinities. We talked about Heru, son of Asar Naset. He operates through the heart. And then you have the lungs, the heart and lung complex. He's sitting in the center. And then you have Wadjet and Nekabet in the right and left lung that are flanking Heru, and sometimes the eye of Heru. You have the heart in the center, or the sun in the center, and these two divinities flanking him on the right and left side. In the body, you see the two lungs, and you see the heart in the center. Thymus is a lymphoid gland comprised of two identically sized lobes located behind the sternum, the breastbone, but in front of the heart. So you have one hawk-headed divinity operating through the heart, which is Heru, son of Asar Naset. Then you have Wadjet and Nekabet in the lungs, in the bronchial tubes that are affecting the life force energy moving through the air and therefore the magnetosphere. Then right in front of the heart, you have the other hawk-headed divinity, Khensu Neferhetep-Heru, the thymus. It derives its name from a resemblance it bears to the bud of the thyme plant and so forth. At puberty, the thymus reaches the height of its youth, becoming its largest. After this age, the size of the thymus declines as the lymphoid tissue disappears and fat fibrous tissue appears. T cells have derived their name from the thymus because this is where they are produced in the human body. Lymphoid stem cells are delivered to the outer cortex layer of the thymus in blood. After multiplying within the outer cortex, they then move to the inner cortex where they develop, hold on one second, they develop T cell surface markers. The maturation of T cells is guided by thymopoietin, thymosin, and other hormones created in the thymus. In the center of the thymus, the medulla, the T cells complete their process of maturing and are then released into the bloodstream. So the lymphatic cells are manufactured in the bone marrow, stem cells and so forth. They're manufactured in the bone marrow. Then those lymphoid cells are sent up. They pass through the thymus, and then the thymus takes some of those lymphoid cells and transforms them into T cells. And then those T cells wage war against, negative cells and so forth. So we're going to pull up some more information. Give me 1 second real quick. We want to pull out something else that's new. Give this other, hold on 1 second. When we talk about the location and the function of Heru operating through the heart, has always been centered there. Heru, operating within heart, that's one of the titles of Heru in ancient Kemet. And then you have another Heru divinity, hawk divinity, sitting right above the heart and so forth. We already knew where they were placed because these are the shrines of the divinities in the body. This is the relationship of Heru, the son of Alsar and Alset, and Khensu Neferhetep-Heru. The whites and offspring tried to fuse these two deities into one, as we said, but we know where they are, what their functions are. When you look at the name of the deity, the stories that are associated with the deity driving out demons and also healing disease and also nourishing and raising up and so forth. The relationship of the thymus gland and the endocrine system, as well as the thymus gland and being the major gland of the lymphatic system, on one hand attacking cancer cells and bacteria and viruses and so forth through the lymphatic system, but also functioning with regard to secreting hormones and affecting the pituitary gland and pineal gland and the other glands in the endocrine system and so forth. So both functions of Khensu manifest in his epithets and his stories in ancient Kemet, in his functioning in the Akhan tradition and in Vodun and so forth, as well as in the language, his names within the Akhan language and ancient Kemet, it all, of course, naturally links up. And then when he possesses and stimulates certain parts of the body, you can feel that that energy in those different parts of the body. We know exactly where these deities are seated within our body. All right. So another description to give some more detail: the thymus gland, despite containing glandular tissue and producing several hormones, is much more closely associated with the immune system than with the endocrine system. So on one hand, it's a major organ of the lymphatic system, often combine immune and lymphatic systems together because they work together, of course. But he also has an endocrine function as well. The thymus serves a vital role in the training and development of T lymphocytes, or T cells, an extremely important type of white blood cell. T cells defend the body from potentially deadly pathogens such as bacteria, viruses, and fungi. The thymus is a soft, roughly triangular organ located in the mediastinum of the thoracic cavity, anterior and superior to the heart and posterior to the sternum, which we just talked about earlier. Shows images of that. They talk about the two identical lobes, how the thymus receives immature T cells that are produced in the red bone marrow and train them up into functional mature T cells that attack only foreign cells. T cells first reside within the cortex of the thymus they're talking about the histology of the thymus and everything, but that's the key. On one hand, training up those T cells, special kinds of white blood cells, to attack the enemy. But then they also have functions with regard to the endocrine system. And let's pull that up real quick just so you can see. And as we're pulling that up, hold on one second. Whenever you try to find out specific information, functioning of the deity, how they interface with one another, what their relationships are, you can always find their shrines within the physical body and see how those different organs and organ systems operate. And when you see how they interface with one another, of course, you will see those exact same relationships in the stories that are told about the deities, because those stories are simply talking about how the deities function in creation, as well as functioning within the shrines of your body. All right, so there's a lot of detailed information you can find out about that. And in fact, the only other piece, as a matter of fact, so we talked about briefly, so they have the hormones generated by the thymus also affect growth and maturation and development within the endocrine system and the different functions of the endocrine system, but also what was discovered a few years ago, which of course, at first the whites and their offspring thought that the thymus reached its maturity at puberty, then it begins to shrink, it begins to get small, and by the time people get older, it's just some fatty tissue in that area, and they thought that was the end of the thymus. In other words, the end of the functioning of Khensu. But of course, within our culture, we don't say, there's no stories about Ayensu disappearing once he got older and so forth. That's not, of course, he did his functioning in the quote-unquote Near East, and then he went home and left the Near East and went back to Southern Kemet, but he still existed. So, of course, we know that he still has a function within the body. It was only a few years ago that scientists discovered that there were actually, beyond just the atrophied tissues within the sternum area, and they thought that was the end of the thymus, they found that there were numerous thymus cells that were in the neck region that they had never seen before. So the thymus continues to function and live on within those thymic cells within the neck region, a number of different cells, similar to the parathyroid cells, 4 of them in the neck region and so forth. You have the thyroid in the front and the parathyroid cells in the back in the same fashion. And of course, they develop from one another. They come from those same areas, but those thymic cells find in different places in the neck region, and they're still engaged in similar functions, fighting against, negative bacteria and so forth. So Khensu continues to wage war. Ayensu and Ayensu continues to wage war against these bacteria, viruses, and so forth, dealing with immunity within the body, but also these endocrine functions as well. The union between the fight against disorder through the thymus, operating through the lymphatic system, specific function dealing specifically with the white blood cells within the lymphatic system, and then the connection between Wadjet, who's waging war and attacking cancerous cells and so forth, bacteria and fungi and everything else, through generating that heat within the life force energy when you're breathing in and out, and the magnetosphere and that centrifugal force that's obliterating these cells. You have a connection between Wadjet and Khensu within the body. You have a union between these two fighting together to preserve the integrity of your body and destroying the enemy. The same thing is happening right now with the union of the summer solstice, the hottest day of the year, the longest day of the year, the hottest time of the year, and so forth, and the full moon coalescing on the same day. Khensu and Wadjet coalescing on the same day. And you can read, in fact, one of the presenters at our Echisign conference, Sister Wabet, Sat Heru, she recently published her book, Wadjet, Yoga, Understanding Serpent Power, and she has a great detailed explanation of the functioning of Wadjet, the polar energy of Wadjet, and her whole yoga system or Ankh system, Wadjet Yoga, Wadjet Ankh, is rooted in invoking the divinity Wadjet, that serpent power, for not just your health and well-being, but for defense and for attacking the enemy. That's physically as well as spiritually. So that's Wadjet Yoga. You can see her presentation, listen to her presentation, all the various presentations of the different presenters from the Etchy Sign conference we did in March. You can find that on our YouTube page. And then, of course, you can order her book. She's come on the show, the Ekwa Marketplace show, a couple of times. You can listen to that broadcast, listen to that interview, and then you can download the book from her webpage. You can Google Wadjet Yoga, Wadjet Ankh on Facebook and so forth. You can purchase the book. So, okay, so we're going to take some phone calls. If you have a question or a comment on the phone line, hit the number 1. If you have a question or a comment in the chat room, you must log in as a user in the chat room in order to interact in the chat room. Okay, first we want to make sure you didn't miss anything in here. Okay, going to go to the phone line. Okay, Michelle on the phone line, number 5306. You had a question or a comment?
Yes, Michiamo, Kwesi.
Major, what's up?
Yeah. All right, my question is pertaining to what's going on right now regarding the full moon and then also the summer solstice. Are we dealing with the balance and everything? Is this the perfect time to deal with? It's always the best time to deal with the bourgeois matrilineal clan as well as the patrilineal clan, dealing with your shrine as far as healing ourselves right now, especially at nighttime since we had the full moon at its capacity, dealing with all the divinities, the women divinities, and also and taking that energy that we have to recuperate or purify ourselves and using that energy to unleash or release that force. Like, say, if you do have, like, there's certain people that say if you do try to present negative energy or negative intentions around you, you do also have that force from the spirit of the sun to project any type of electrical protection, electrical pulse of protection around yourself, so you do have that sphere around you.
Yes, you do. Now, I would say when you're talking about the solstices like that, it's more so dealing with, I mean, of course, you always deal with your ancestresses and ancestors, your matriclan and patriclan. This particular time is dealing with invocation of the Abosom, the deity, for sustenance on one hand, but purification. So, for example, so you're always dealing with your ancestresses and ancestors, but this is the time to take advantage of the energy, the dispensation of energy that's coming from the deity. Just like somebody, if it's very hot outside, people want to go and get brown, and they go outside and, get their melanin out in the sun so they can take advantage of the sunlight so they can get infused with some energy. In the same fashion, this conjunction of the full moon and the summer solstice is a good time to take advantage of that energy, invoking Khensu, as well as Ayensu and Ayensu, Khensu and Kwesi, as well as Wadjet together, because they're operating at a peak at this particular time. I pulled up this information. Well, before I say that, because this will actually coincide with what you asked, but did that answer the question?
Yeah, that answers it to a certain part of the degree, because, because they're working in. I mean, the Macha clan and the Pacha clan are working in unison, but the Macha clan is working in unison too, as far as with the healing aspect as well as the attacking aspect of it. I mean, the healing aspect as well as the protection aspect of it regarding this moon, and also dealing with, we're in the element also, supposed to be in the element of this particular time, dealing with the air, how that also correlates to the timing, with the sun and everything else. So you have to pay attention to this due to this air, like you were saying, dealing with the air, dealing with the wind.
Right, definitely. But and that's true of any solstice, any equinox as well. But the unique piece about this is the first time in like nearly 70 years that the full moon and the solstice came together at the same time. So when we're talking about Khensu, the traveler, traveling in the Khen, in the ship, which is the moon, which is the vessel, and one of the titles of the moon in Akhan also is Shen, which means a vessel, but also the illuminate vessel, which is the moon, focusing on this specific divinity and his healing capacity, him leaving the continent, going to a foreign land, healing, driving out negative spirits and so forth, and going back to his homeland and so forth. This specific configuration that hasn't happened in 70 years, and the next time it's going to happen is like something like 70 or 80 years from now. This is a specific time to deal with Khensu and Wadjet together. So in fact, that's the difference between our regular, dealing with the matriclan and patriclan divinities and, your AKRADINBOSOM and so forth. This is a specific thing that has only happened once in like 70 years.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Because I say, yeah.
Okay, I say that. Appreciate the call. And that's one reason we did the broadcast tonight, because of course it falls on tonight. But normally whenever there's a solstice or an equinox that comes up, we always talk about the Abosom of the AKRADINBOSOM, bosom that governs your head, the patriclan divinity, the matriclan divinity that governs your patriclan and matriclan ancestresses and ancestors. So you deal with your ancestresses and ancestors of your blood circle. You deal with the deities that govern your patriclan and matriclan, and the deity that governs your head, that triangular structure. The head, the patriclan, and matriclan divinity. So we talk about them anytime we're doing broadcasts and it comes upon those times. We're dealing with that, and this is why we have conferences around those times, specifically to take advantage of that energy for the good of the community. We have our 7-day New Year celebration that leads up to the autumn equinox. We're taking advantage of fusion of energy for 7 days, leading up to the equinox, which is our New Year's Day. And then 3 weeks after that, we have the Hoodoo Nation Festival. Then on the March equinox, the vernal equinox, the spring equinox, we have our Etifi Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference to pull the community together to take advantage of that infusion of balanced energy at that particular time. And now this is the time of the summer solstice. So we're going to have our Odwirafo conference this Friday, Ptah, from 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. in Washington, D.C. Of course, for the people who came on a little bit later, that conference is free and open to Afurakanu and Afuraitkaitnut people only. We'll be dealing with Amaniye nationism, the purification of nationalism, talking about the 7 principal values of nationism, and a number of different things. We're going to have some presenters. We're going to have our Egua marketplace. Our vendors will be there all day. You can come for part of the day, the whole day, whatever you need to do. You see the detailed information on our Ojirama and Afashe page. You can come out. It's for Afurakanu and Afuraitkaitnut people only. We're going to have raw live food, a vendor in NISE's kitchen out of Philadelphia, and a number of different vendors as well. So come on out. It's family as well, adults as well as children. I know the children are out of school. Some people are taking a half a day. We're going to open the doors at 12. Program starts at 1. So even if you took a half a day from work, once you get here, you'll be coming just in time. You won't miss anything. Some people are taking a whole day off just to take advantage of this, our first annual festival. And even if you come, later in the day after work, we'll still be going until about 8 p.m. The last presentation will start around 6 o'clock, but we'll have presentations throughout the day. So we take advantage of these, this infusion of energy at these different points of the year with these different conferences, communally. We do it individually in our homes, at our shrines, and with family and so forth, but also communally, taking advantage of the shift in energy so we can balance ourselves as a community. It's like you take advantage of the shift in energy when you go to sleep at night, regenerate and assimilate your food and regenerate yourself. When you rise with the sun, you take advantage of that energy. You're very active during the hot part of the day. As the sun begins to set, you take advantage of that cool energy. You begin to cool down and be more contemplative and studying different things that you engage in. In the same fashion, communally, we take advantage of the dispensation of energy that's being exuded by the deities as they operate through the different features of creation. This particular day is a little bit different. Instead of just giving a regular presentation and talk about the summer solstice, because of that conjunction of the full moon and the summer solstice on the same day for the first time in like 70 years, it's a unique configuration of energy, and Khensu, Nefertep-Heru, and Wadjet working together at the same time. So this is why we want to focus on those two, and this is why we showed the image. When you look at the image for the show, you see that image, and that's this from the Temple of Khensu. That image that we have on the show, promotional for the show, is from the Temple of Khensu in ancient Kemet. And on the left side, you see Khensu himself, and right in front of him, you see Wadjet, and she has the solar disk on her head, and Khensu has the moon, the full moon, on his head. So this is that exact same conjunction of Khensu and Wadjet that you see in that temple, the exact same conjunction of Khensu and Wadjet that we're experiencing today, June 20th, 13,016. So this is why we have this special broadcast. All right. But the piece that I was going to read quickly from is from Wabet Seshat Sadheru's book, Wadjet Yoga, so you can see the way she explains that information. Of course, you can purchase this book, as we said earlier. On page 47, she says, in ancient times, Wadjet was celebrated in close association with the sun and its cycles to begin her year in worship. The going forth of Wadjet ceremony was celebrated on December 25th with chant, drumming, dancing, and songs. December 25th is just a few days after the winter solstice, the time when the sun and its energies are most hidden from the world. It is the day when the sun first reemerges on the horizon. After its reemergence on December 25th, the sun begins its climb to the top of the yearly horizon. As it moves, its warm, nourishing energies spark the beginning of a new season of life. Everything becomes green again. Baby animals are born, the soil is turned, and seeds are planted. The life force of all creatures is raised. As the sun hits its highest peak in the sky, so does Wadjet maximize at the crown, sending powerful protective and restorative energies through the body. In keeping with the celebration of this achievement, which transforms men into kings and women into queens, of course, the most important date for special worship of her energies is June 21st, the summer solstice. This year, it landed on June 20th. The earth is at its hottest. The first fruits of spring are ready to eat in abundance. There's fullness and life and movement everywhere. After this long season of fullness for the remainder of the year, the sun descends slowly until it returns to its quiet, dormant state just below the horizon, completing another cycle on the wheel of the year. During its descent, the sun sees the passage of another cycle of abundance as the last crops ripen, as animals born in spring pass into their maturity, and as communities come together to gather for the harvest. It sees their celebrations as they enjoy the fruits of their labors, and they ingest the nutrients that are the manifestation of the sun's glory in the earth's womb. As the sun drifts farther away, prepare themselves for the cold, the trees shed their year of abundance onto the ground below, so that it can be used in the renewal of the next season coming. The communities gather and store nourishment for the post-harvest season. And finally, movement stops. The trees are bare, the soil waits, and the sun drifts below the horizon, marking the end of another cycle. Now, just want to read one more section on that. Just as Wadjet is celebrated as the power that flanks the sun and the human body, there is a time for all her seasons as well. At our spiritual beginning, coiled at the base of the spine, quiet, dormant, but in due time and with the correct discipline, the serpent energy rises up from its bodily winter at the base of the spine. It sees the rising of the kidney energy where the life force is stored. The kidney's color is also green, and their energies are also responsible for our reproductive capacity, just like the season of spring. The Wadjet power continues to rise through the 7 gates, the vertebrae at the bottom of the neck. And of course, those are the 7 cervical vertebrae. And upward through the crown, bestowing the practitioner of Wadjet, talking about Wadjet yoga, with an inner power which matches that of the sun on his grander scale. There is a rebirth which takes place, and the unawakened human finally becomes aware of the conscious forces which guide him or her through life to discover and live out our destiny as the highest potential we can achieve as a human. It means that we are serving our divine purpose to ourselves by what we have available to offer in service of other Afurakani people, of course, and to the divine body of which we are an organ or subsystem. Once connected to the guardian who has been assigned to assist us in the carrying out of our destiny, the Wadjet energy begins to descend down the front of the body. The energies which have been raised through devoted practice and which at their peak allow us to be a light, to shine forth our energy and personal magnetism into the world to benefit others, slowly descend to pass the heart, which is the seat of the conscience and the source of our connection to summer like abundance, through the gate at the navel where our personal harvest is stored and made use of through the daily digestive process, and finally, at the end of its cycle, it comes to rest dormant once more at the base of the spine. There, like the sun below the horizon, it will prepare for another rise and transition into our ever-expanding reality. Section excerpt from the Sadhguru's book, Wadjet Yoga. So we just wanted to show how she was explaining that process, not only in nature, but also when you're engaged in the process of Wadjet Yoga, which is a form of Ankh or yoga, which she established from her ancestresses and ancestors and working directly with Wadjet, the Abosom, the deity Wadjet. So you can get that book. We just want to share that. And as we said earlier, we had her on the show a couple of times, and you can download those 2 interviews as well. So hold on, we got another call coming up. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything here. Hold on one second. Okay, on the phone line, number 7244, you had a question or a comment?
Hotepu, Uncle Josh Chanel, brother. Life, wellness, and prosperity. How are you?
Good. How are you? What's up?
Yeah, this is Brother Equanese, and I'm just calling in basically in reference to, and if you could give me that quote that you put down about that you spoke, and I know it was concerning the melee that's been going on in the media lately. And it basically says something about it is inhumane to give an atom's weight of compassion. Or how did you put that, brother?
Oh, yeah. What I posted and what the brother's talking about, and of course we did a whole broadcast last Yalda Thursday on our Mind STEM Affairs of the Nation show, talking about the Orlando shooting and countering the dissexual homosexual agenda. But what I said, and I posted it on Facebook, it is humane, and we put hue as H-U-E, inhumane, to generate an atom's weight of compassion for the non-humane. The non-colored, non-black people is not humane, and we're the only authentic human beings, Afuraitkaitnut people. It is inhumane. It's not our nature to generate an atom's weight of compassion for the non-human or the non-humane. So whenever they are executed, it's always a time for rejoice. It's never a time for generating some faux or pseudo-compassion for cancerous cells. When cancerous cells are destroyed by Wadjet and Khensu, the other cells in the body don't, start having GoFundMe accounts to protect the cancerous cells. They're glad that the cancerous cells are taken out. Absolutely.
And that's what because I had actually consulted with my priest, the chief priest of Ayensu, Brother Akwamu. And, he informed me that tonight or today this was the Tahuti moon. And when we're looking at, even with the story of Wadjet and her father, and as the story goes, why she was created and, the duty that she carried out inside finding Eshu and Tifnut, or even kind of like the interlocking of Nut and Gab, and how that was chaos, and until, Tahuti, or the balance, like the brother was speaking earlier, just talking about the balance, us being here at basically the half mark, or of a half mark within the year, and us seeing that moon and, the sun out basically at the same time today, and even with what you were just talking about inside, I'm going to say a ritual done by those cancerous cells. I wanted to ask the question on how we are gaining momentum. How do you see that us as Afrikani people, ancestors of the great ones, not ancestors, offsprings of the ancestors, or the ancestors' return, basically. How do you feel that we are within, even it being a Tahuti moon, or the great intuitive judge within all universal things, even within ourselves? How do you feel we as a black people, as an African people, are doing on that, even with those types of events going on, and where more so than even when we're looking at Ghana, the things that are going on in Ghana, or even in the diaspora. Here in South Carolina, the Odwirafo village, they had a lot of storms here, and, they had a lot of, damage done, but where more black people or more African people would pay more attention to things that are cancerous rather than things that are organic to their nature. How do you feel we are doing, or, as far as being able to congregate and communicate properly to take us back to those places that we were, the great places that we were on the Nile Valley, or, things of that nature, that we could perform those duties again and, rise ourselves again, whether it be through yoga, whether it be through our meditation, through our collective understanding of what we lost inside our ancient greatness. So I just wanted to kind of get your opinion on that, on, where we're going, even with this being an election year, and there'll probably be a lot of much more crazy stuff that happens, and our people, seems to me, in my eyes, they're blinded. How do you feel about things, brother?
Well, now, of course, millions of our people are blinded. However, just when at the harvest time, so when you see, the fall and the fruits are falling and everything else, and people harvest and they see some fruits fall and then they begin to rot right on the ground. And you see the fruit rotting, and you can smell the fruit rotting. So the average people walking around see, well, nobody collected this fruit. It's rotting, it's going to waste, people are not being nourished by it and so forth. But at the same time, some of the seeds from the rotting fruit have gone into the soil, and they begin to germinate and send their roots deep down within the darkness. And once they root deep down into the darkness to draw the nutrients deep dark in the blackness of the soil, like the winter solstice hitting rock bottom, then they begin to germinate and start pushing, the seedlings up, and at some point they're going to break through the surface. When they break through the surface, people will recognize that germination had been taking place and rooting had been taking place that they didn't know about, but it was going on the whole time, and development was taking place the whole time. So some of our people are caught up, but there is a seeding has already taken place, a germination has already taken place, and a rootedness is taking place, or rooting is taking place, because people are finally beginning to return to their ancestral traditions, ancestrally inherited, rooted in their blood circles, and not just running around spending thousands of dollars to beg people to accept them in their clan and give them quote-unquote initiations, but returning to their ancestrally inherited transcarnational blood circles and the deities that they were born with. This is the rooting that's taking place that some people don't see right now, but it's expanding, and it's expanding rapidly. So those people like Wadjet rising up and going to the top, to the crown and so forth, that process is already happening right now. So that many people don't see that, they just can feel or sense something, but then there are many people who are participating in that. So in reality, it's on an upswing, and for the people who know, they're on that, and it's expanding. At the same time, it's expanding. We're destroying these fake religions every day. We're exposing Moorishism and Christianity and Hebrewism and Islam, and all of this nonsense is being destroyed on a regular basis at a pace that, because of the internet, because of Anansi Tontai, because of the web of Anansi, getting that information out, not just in this country, but all around the world, and people are rejecting that nonsense by the thousands daily. So it's moving at a rapid pace that many people can't perceive because they don't know it's happening. They just know something different is taking place. At the same time, as more of our people are evoking our Nananom Nsamanfo, the Aku, the Akutu, the ancestors and ancestors spiritually cultivated, invoking the Abosom, the Umtoru, the Risha Vodu, and so forth, and realigning. You have other people who know something about it, but they're not engaged in practice because they're still trying to hold on to the whites in their offspring, and they're putting themselves out of balance, and there's a disconnect. You know what you should be doing, but you're following along with the whites in their offspring, and that disjointedness will manifest in upheavals in communities, upheavals in societal structures, even some natural events. Now, of course, sometimes the whites in our offspring are causing, things that appear to be natural events like the earthquake in Haiti and things like that. Then you have things happening like certain areas in Ghana or parts of other places where people are getting hit with certain kinds of unusual natural events and so forth. That disjointedness will force them to focus and make a decision. Are you going to get back on track, or you're not going to get on track? If you're not going to get on track, you're going to be forced out because there's a large number of people who are getting back on track and they're not compromised. That's what's really happening. Some of our people are beginning to recognize that reality. That's the reason we're having the things that we're having, and other people around the country in different parts of the world, wherever our people are, they're expanding and accelerating this development.
Wow, and I definitely see that even when people, I guess people look at storms or look at Oya or they look at Sekhmet, and they look at these as being fiery energies. But like you're saying, that is the time that we're going through. Certain things have to be burned off in order for us to, make a new way, or to force us basically to, and even with inside the restoration, even speaking of Wadjet, or even the unification of the upper and lower Kemet back in, even with wearing the crown of upper and lower Kemet, that does show the unification of the two lands, showing the unification of, like, even when we look at the Herem Aket, looking at the, the head of the Pharaoh or the divine one, or looking at the beastly body, that is the unification of the two in order for us to, so definitely, brother, that does, make everything clear. And even as we're talking about the Wazungu or the white people, I guess with them being a part of Nete as well, because we all are here they are, as my priest tells me, their doing would be their very undoing. And a lot of things they are encouraging or forcing black people, us as African people, to return back. But you would see, even with all the chaos and stuff that we've been through, a lot of our people are still falling to the feet of the Wazungu and to the feet of, the white people. And, so you will ask, is nature, is Natea, it fulfilling its purpose, or do we have to get kicked in our bunkum several times again? I think, the great one said, we have a short memory, and our people are partying, our people are doing a lot of stuff rather than clinging on and, ridding themselves of that disease. But, definitely a great talk tonight, brother, and I appreciate you, man. Appreciate the work that you do. And be well, brother. Be well.
May I say, appreciate the call. Appreciate the support.
All right. Uncle Jocelyn, brother. Hotel.
It is. It's definitely taking place. And we would also say when the whites and their offspring, they're cancerous cells. So they exist, but they're not part of creation with a capital C, meaning they were not created through divine fiat or divine sanction any more than a cancerous cell that develops. Somebody creates some machinery or power lines that generate a great deal of radiation, and then you move into a house and it's right near the power plant and so forth, and that radiation causes some of your cells to become corrupt and they turn into cancerous cells. That process of these cells becoming cancerous did not come into being because the Supreme Being directed those cells, you're going to be cancerous cells today. I'm going to create you as cancerous cells so you can live in the body. You were directed not to move in those areas or do something to protect yourself, or something was telling you not to move into the area, but you moved into the area anyway, and then you suffered because you stepped outside of divine order. And the cancerous cells developing within the body was a result of you stepping outside of divine order. So the Supreme Being, the deities, never create the whites and their offspring. They degenerated from the original creation. And this is why they're slated for absolute extermination, extirpation, eradication, without exception, because they're not a natural part of creation. They haven't always been here, and they will not always be here. And it's up to the Afurakanu Afuraitkaitnut community to determine how quickly they will be eliminated. So, and there was a chapter in the chat room. One of the comments, this is also Ojo Ajay in Yoruba tradition, the Ajay Ide, also the Iyami, meaning the great mothers, the Yoruba Ifa primordial mothers that govern Mondays, and this being the summer solstice and the full moon, we should out in nature doing traditional praise songs, prayers with, let me scroll down a little bit, with drums while doing dances, movements too with the moon, followed by divining the energies ruling the celestial cycle. That's what Ia Nahila said in the chat room. Just so everybody who is not in the chat room could see that or hear that. So may I say for that. Okay, and then there was also how do we incorporate today being the Joda Fojo ceremonial Monday and meditation with the rare co-occurrence of the full moon and summer solstice. So the question in the chat room is saying, how do we incorporate? Well, and you just said it. With meditation at the shrine, you could, whether you were outside or inside at the shrine of the Kra, meditation in the shrine he was talking about today is not only just a regular Monday Joda, it's also a Fojo. In our Akhan culture, every sixth Monday is a Fojo Joda, which is a sacred ceremonial Monday. And this Fojo Joda, or special Monday, happens to coincide with the summer solstice and also happens to coincide with the full moon. So this co-occurrence of the full moon and the summer solstice, and this is why we have the specific broadcast talking about Khensu and Wadjet. First time it's occurring in 70-plus years. Plus, it's also on a sacred Monday that only happens every 6 weeks in our Khan culture, and that Fojo could have been last Monday, and it wouldn't have coincided. But this year, it coincided all three events occurring together. So But yes, you can do that at the shrine for the OKRA even tonight after the broadcast and so forth. Okay, just want to make sure we didn't miss anything in the chat room before we go forward. All right, and there are a few minutes left in the broadcast. After 11:30, the broadcast will automatically cut off if we're just listening online. And the only people who will be able to hear are the people on the phone. We probably won't have to go into overtime, but if we do go over a couple of minutes, you would have to be on the phone line before 11:30 hits in order to hear beyond 11:30. If you want to get on the phone line, the call-in number is 657-383-0635, 657-383-0635. You have about 6 minutes to call in, or else in 6 minutes it will cut off online. You won't be able to hear anything else. All right. And for those who are not able to get on, again, we have Ojiraman Afashe, our Ojiraman Conference, Purified Nation, Afurakanu Afuraitkaitnut people in the Western Hemisphere Conference, this Ptah, this Friday, June 24th. It's actually an Afidam Ptah, which is an Ancestral Friday. This is another piece in the Akhan calendar that happens every 6th Friday. And this particular Afidam Friday, Sacred Friday, happens to land on June 24th, which is the day of our conference, which is one of the reasons we're having it on that Friday, that Sacred Friday, this Friday after the solstice, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's a free conference. Vendors will be there all day. We'll have presentations and so forth dealing with Amaniye, Afurakanu Afuraitkaitnut, or African Black nationism, the purification of nationalism. Here in Washington, D.C., registration is free. Registration is required. Just simply go to our page, our Ojiraman Afashe page on our website to register, or you can go on Facebook. We created a special Ojiraman Afashe page on Facebook, as well as event notifications on Facebook. We have a video trailer for the conference. Go to our YouTube page for that, and you can get that information. If you're not able to make the conference, if you would like to pre-order the book, you can go to our publications page. We're going to publish a book just for the conference, as we've done for the previous conference as well. We already have 20 books that we have published dealing with various aspects of Afurakanu Ancestral Religion, culture, true history, philosophy, nationism, revolution, resolution, nation building, Ancestor, and so forth. So our books range from $8 to $11. If you would like to support the work we're doing, you can purchase one or more of our books. We have discounts for the first 5 books, which are $40. Any order of 10 books or more, 30% off. But our books range between $8 and $11. So whether you buy one book or more, that's supportive of the work we're doing, so we can continue to have these free conferences. We also give away a free copy of the book, one of our books, to everyone who comes to our presentations. So we do presentations in different cities throughout the year. Whenever we do a presentation in the city, number one, we do not charge an admissions fee for any presentation, so people always come to our presentations for free. We also do not charge organizers a speaker's fee for presentations either. So people come to our events for free, and we give away one of our books for free to each person who comes to the event. So you come to a free event, and you receive one of our softcover books at the event as well. So even if you don't have any funds, you can come to a free event, and you get a free book. And we've done that at every presentation we've done. We're going to do the same thing on Ptah on Friday. Everyone who comes out is going to receive a copy of the new Ojiraman Afashe book that we published for that, which will be released that day. And we've given away over 860 of our softcover books at different events, and we want to continue that program, plus all of the ebook versions of all 20 of our books are free downloads from our website. That's permanent. So if people don't have funds, they can download all 20 of our books for free. If you like to purchase the softcover version, they range between $8 and $11. Most of them are $9 or $10. We have some for $8. One of them is $11. The rest of them are either $9 or $10. And then we have 20% and 30% discount for multiple orders, like the first 5 books are $40. And we have that special going on. You can, when you click the 5 books for $40 special, you can either get the first 5 books or any combination of titles, not just the first 5. We did a video talking about the first 5. So leading up to the conference, our special is you can, any 5 books, any 5 titles, when you click that button, 5 books for $40, just send us a note in the comment section in PayPal and let us know which books you would like to receive. So that's a way to assist us if you appreciate the work we're doing, to assist us in the work that we're doing, so we can continue to have these free conferences as well as free presentations and workshops throughout the year, including our Afurakanu Manhood workshop based on our book, Afurakanu Manhood, as well as our entrepreneurship program. And we're also raising funds to open up our center so that we can expand our free classes and services and entrepreneurship program to more people who would like to become independent contractors and entrepreneurs. Sell our softcover books wherever you are. We have some vendors, entrepreneurs already. We have that Nokwadifolk option right there on the publications page. So go to the NHOMA publications page and you will see that. You can begin to work immediately. You're working for yourself. You're not working for us. You simply purchase the books from us wholesale at 35% off, and then you sell them resale to friends, family, coworkers, and people you come in contact with, and you can begin to generate money for yourself instantaneously, notwithstanding your prior work history. We have to have solutions, economic as well as cultural, for our people. If our people come to us and say, do you have an option for us to begin to work right now? We have that option, and our 20 books basically sell themselves. So when you order them and receive them, then you can begin to sell. So that's that piece. So I'm going to get back to the phone line real quick. Okay, Michiamo on the phone line. You had a question or a comment?
Yes, Michiamo, everyone, Kwesi. My question was, and this show is very liberating, and with the Wadjet energy, and that's what I wanted to ask. With the energy, magnetic energy, is that something you could use with the astral traveling, or is there such thing as that? I'm not sure. Astral traveling?
Astral traveling, that's just a name. That's just a descriptive name that has become kind of popular in literature written by Europeans. That's just talking about someone's spirit traveling, basically. So sometimes when people are sleeping, the spirit separates from the body and they interface with other ancestral spirits and non-related spirits. And people, the whites and offspring call that astral traveling. Or sometimes through ritual, the spirit will separate from the body. Or sometimes when people are not engaged in ritual, just sometimes people have what we would call a light sum or a light spirit, and their spirit will separate, and they need to ground themselves ritually so their spirit can become heavy. Their spirit can become heavy so they're not pulled in different directions. But that's just a title or a descriptive title of a process or a way of experiencing where your spirit separates from your body. Whites and offspring just call it astral travel.
So what do we call it? Is it a name for it? Is it just your spiritual?
Well, it's just like sometimes people say the sum or the spirit is walking or the spirit is traveling. Just them throwing astral on it is just them associating you with starlight and things like that. But sometimes people say the sum is walking, or the spirit is walking, or the spirit has traveled. Different ways to describe it.
And in regards to the last caller, when things are happening, like like you were saying, if people know they're not doing the right thing, then they have to question themselves. And when things do happen, in relation to that, I remember one of your shows. I think it's the Susu Meditation and Ancestral Religion. Akhan and Connect Nubia Ancestral Akhan. In that show, I think you were saying something about when something bad happens to a person, we don't, as Odwirafo, we don't ask why did that happen. We say, what are you doing, or something you said about in your past life or something like that. Does all that have to do with our energy, the magnetic energy in itself? You know, like I guess I'm saying what goes around come around. I don't know if it's karma or something like that. Could you kind of elaborate?
Right. Here, in hoodoo, and when we translate those things in English in North America, they're saying karma. We would just use the English terms. What goes around comes around, which is still saying the same thing. So when anything happens, sometimes people say, "Well, why did this happen to me?" But then our people say, "Who did this?" Not what happened, but who did this? Sometimes people are doing something to make something happen. Sometimes there is a discarnate spirit trying to make something happen, or somebody trying to engage in some ritual practice to make something happen. Sometimes it can be the result. It's like if you had a stomach ache at 7 o'clock p.m., and you figure out, well, what did you eat at 3 o'clock that led to this stomach? There's a cause for every effect. Now, sometimes people are actually doing something. Sometimes it's a result of something that you have done, and things have unfolded quite naturally and led to the result. And that includes behaviorally. That includes people putting themselves in a position where they end up being injured and so forth because they did something to someone, and they put themselves on a kind of karmic track where they were going to, and lane where they were going to end up coming in contact with some kind of, force that was going to, revisit some of that retribution upon them. So it depends on what people have been doing, what position they put themselves in, and what other people are doing as well. So it's not a situation like, for example, we don't fall into the trap of saying every single thing that happens to us negatively is all our fault because whites and offspring want us to believe that, therefore anything they do, we'll say, well, that's just karma. We must have done something in the past, so we just need to accept what they're doing to us. And that's totally inaccurate. What they're doing is because they want to do it, because their spirits of disorder, they're cancerous cells. So we don't just allow them to do anything. We wage war against them. We defend ourselves against them. Now, you can look at specific things where we did not pay attention, and we should have eradicated them earlier, but we just neglected to do so, and then things got out of control, things like that. But we have to be judicious in the way we apply these principles and recognize. We have to really look into and investigate what's really taking place. What is the real cause of the effect or the result? But sometimes it's something that somebody else is doing in the present to force something to happen because they're disordered. Sometimes it has something to do with conditioning, that you keep putting yourself in the same position because you haven't broken conditioning. Sometimes it's because you did something to somebody else and you put yourself in a position where you're going to run into that person or event later on. A number of different things. Abosom punishing people, Nsamafo punishing people. It depends on what's taking place.
Okay. Now my last question is I understand that our voodoo is the practice of our healing, our medicine, our communicating with the Abosom, and the practice against our enemies, and that hoodoo is what we are and naturally what we know, or is that what it is? The hoodoo? Could you explain the hoodoo with the voodoo?
Okay, no, the difference is voodoo itself means deity. That's in the Fon and Ewe language from people in Togo and Benin. Some of them live in Nigeria, some live in Ghana, but mainly in Togo and Benin. So the Fon and Ewe people, they call the deities the Vodou. Akhan people call the deities the Abosom. Yoruba people say Orisha. Igbo people say Arusi and so forth. The Fon and Ewe people call the deities Vodou, but they call their tradition Vodun. And when they were forced into North America, they continued to speak their language. So they continue to call their tradition Vodun. Akhan people call the deities the Abosom. So sometimes they'll just say we practice Abosom Som, which means the worship of the Abosom. But we also practice medicine and everything else. So when we were forced into North America, instead of saying I practice the Akan religion, AKANFO NANASOM, or whatever, one of the things that we do is we utilize medicine and so forth. So the tradition itself became popularly known as Undu, which is an Akhan term dealing with root work of medicine and power and conjure and spirits and so forth. So we just began to popularly call the whole tradition Undu, which became pronounced Hoodoo in North America, which is really the Akhan tradition in North America. Yoruba people continue to practice their Yoruba tradition, Orisha tradition in North America. The term Juju is a Yoruba term dealing with medicine and power and conjuring the Orisha and ancestral spirits, the Gungun and so forth. So they simply began to call the whole tradition Juju in North America. They still use the term Juju in Nigeria, but they often talk about it in terms of, medicine and witchcraft and stuff like that, even though they try to say that here, like Juju just means witchcraft and medicine and stuff like that. But we just started to call the whole tradition Juju because it was a popular way to refer to it. So Voodoo is the Fon and Ebe tradition in North America. Hoodoo is the Akhan religion in North America. Juju is the Yoruba religion in North America. Grigri is the Bambara tradition and other Mindi traditions in North America. Wanga is an Ovambo term, and other Bantu-speaking people, like the Ovambo amongst the Gullah people. Some of them were Ovambo, some of them were different groups from the Congo and things like that. Wanga is a term from those languages, those Congo languages and Ovambo languages and those and so forth. So they began to call the whole tradition Wanga. It was just a popular way to describe it. But what you're really saying is, I'm Ovambo. If you say I practice Hoodoo, what you're really saying is I'm Akhan. If you say I practice Juju, what you're really saying that I'm Yoruba. If you practice Vodun, you're saying I'm Fon or Ebe. Those were the people who brought those traditions and those specific language descriptors over here. Now, later on, 100 years later, people just started using those terms just generically, like saying, oh, Juju means witchcraft, Hoodoo means witchcraft, Voodoo means witchcraft, and they just start throwing the terms around. What we're doing is taking these terms back to their original languages and showing where they actually come from, and they all reference different ethnic groups' expression of ancestral religion.
Okay. So the astral is Susu walking. That's what we call it, huh? Susu walking.
Well, people call it different things. So depending on who you're talking to, some people say it's spirit walking. Some people say it's traveling. Some people, it's just depending on what group is talking about it. That's what they're saying.
All right, and they use the energy of our magnetic energy. Okay, thank you. It was liberating, and I enjoyed the show, and you have a good evening. Madasi.
Okay, Madasi, we appreciate the call. Okay, we have another call. Michiobo on the phone line, number 9184. You had a question or comment?
Yeah. Thanks for filling my call. I'm pretty new to this, right? My question is, since slavery and the mixing of groups of people, right? A while back, I just did this that DNA thing, right? And it told me that I'm 35% Congo and Cameroon, and 32% Ivory Coast and Ghana, and then 8% Senegal, right? Senegalese. So how can I select what tradition to go into?
Okay, and that's a good question. So now, did you do did you go through AfricanAncestry.com, or which kind of steps did you do?
I went through Ancestry.com, and they said they do it by regions. So they lumped Congo and Cameroon together, and also it has some Bantu, some Southeast, some Southern Africa, like Bantu and everything, and then Senegalese, and then Ivory Coast and Ghana and Gabon, and Burkina Faso, and some other places where I guess where the trials were located.
Okay. So what you'll find is with different tests, they test for different things. Some of them have a Y chromosome test, and some have a mitochondrial, or you have a mix of both, or they have that mixture test with the percentages and things like that. So that'll give you some picture of where some of the people came from. the key is when your mother gave birth to you, before that happened, before the conception took place, she was a grown woman or whatever. You were an ancestral spirit. At some point, she connected with somebody. They copulated and drew your spirit into her womb. Before that took place, you were an ancestral spirit. You had lived somewhere, whether you lived here for a while or 100 years before that, you lived somewhere on the continent. You lived as part of a community. You were speaking as part of a language. Either you were forced into enslavement at some point and lived here and died and became an ancestral spirit here, or you were living on the continent and died or were killed or something like that, and your descendants were forced over here. More than likely, you got caught up and were brought over here and died over here at some point. You became an ancestor, and 100, 200 years later, and so forth, you were born through one of your descendants. So you were part of a culture, and that's the culture you're going to be drawn to. You find out what that culture is directly from your great-great-great-great-grandparents who are ancestresses and ancestors. That's why we have ancestral communication. We pour libation, establish ancestral shrines, we communicate directly with our direct blood ancestresses and ancestors. Just like you're alive, you can ask your mother or grandmother, hey, what hospital was I born in? They can tell you. You can ask your ancestresses and ancestors, hey, what clan were we a part of? Who are we a part of? They can tell you because they're still part of that clan. They speak that language and so forth. They've given you clues already because you'll see certain motifs or certain kinds of artwork or certain things from a specific group that you're more attracted to than any other group on the continent. You may like a lot of them. One in particular you'll be drawn to, one specific language you'll be drawn to, or from one particular ethnic group, you run into those people more so than you run into any other people, even if you see people at work or see people out or whatever, or online, people from your ethnic group in your past, so you quote-unquote run into them. So they've been giving you clues along the way, so when you begin to engage them ritually, your ancestresses and ancestors ritually, then they'll give you that information and they'll begin to confirm it on a regular basis. So now we've done a few broadcasts on that in detail. We've published some articles on establishing an ancestral shrine, and we did a couple of broadcasts where we went through those articles in detail. One of them is called AKONGUASUA Ancestral Shrine Communication and Liberation. And it's all on the YouTube page. You can look at the various videos. You'll see them. And that one in particular, we go through like 3 of the articles that we wrote dealing with ancestral shrines and so forth and that kind of ritual practice. And we go into specific detail step by step on that. But that's the most direct way that you find out specifically who you are, what group you begin to, embrace and learn that particular language and incorporate those things. And then you'll find that the specific things that group does, you'll find